just as long as you stay in between here and here when you talk, then you're good.
And I have to have them mailed by
I was just fixing it.
Yeah, he's ready.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the deed, I'm not on the box, so someone, I need the deed number. Yeah. Deposit, he could go. Yeah, he'll give me the deed number. That's all I need to keep us tax consultant. Heather and I go through every file, and that's just where Larry come up and get it organized.
Hello, Santa.
So you live right here in town?
We're excited to announce the release of our new single, Unbreakable, streaming now.
I'll go first before I get in trouble.
Hey, I'm Andy, and I started Harris, the shaving company that takes your shave. At Harris, we keep it simple. We make sharp, clean blades and offer them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We obsess over quality so much that we do crazy things, like buy a German razor blade guy. So give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover. All for only $3 with free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter 0099 at checkout. That's harrys.com, code 0099.
He had a buddy, had a buddy, had a buddy, or a buddy.
Mine do that.
They know exactly what I can't. Hey, we'll start being driver next year earlier, and we'll start pushing what it was. Well, I came home Friday, I was like, I was working in, Main Street, and I was like, those are gangs, I thought that's gangs, cheap now. Getting home, and I was eating my, on the way home, I thought, hey, what's up? Hey.
Yeah, you better not.
Hey, but like I said, if I could say frozen nuggets or frozen egg fries, I'm afraid I have to go and be the chef. Come on in. Good.
Right.
Hey, like you said, as long as he's got a juice pouch and some fishes.
Oh, I just looked at the top. There he is.
It started bothering me at school. This time he just bring me. Because when Hey, compared to some
Well, good morning. Welcome to late summer here in Oklahoma. Does anyone feel like summer decided to finally show up, right? Starting to feel like it, isn't it? Which means it's going to be hot from now until about when?
August, September.
December?
No.
Anyway,
Middle of September.
remember, yeah, it'll be a minute for real, right?
Praying for 6 feet of snow.
6 feet of snow. Diane always prays for 6 feet of snow. So if we ever get 6 feet of snow, it's her fault, y'all. Yeah, a couple of things happening this week. Let's see, we've got some updates. Bob and Mona are not here. Where are they at today?
Bob and Mona presently, as we speak, are in Granite, Oklahoma, visiting Stephen at the facility he's at. And they get to spend 4 hours with him. Her dad is with them. And you might say a prayer for Nick, because Nick is with Theo and his mom, her mother, and her mother's middle stages of Alzheimer's, somewhere along in there. So he's babysitting her mom and his kid.
Yeah, so those of you who don't know the story, Stephen's their youngest son, got in a little bit of trouble with the law, and they decided he needed to go spend some time in Claremore for a long time, and now he's working on getting out of jail, and so he's in a minimum security prison, and they get to go say hi to him today. So they'll be back next week, or actually they'll be here for Bible study Tuesday, right?
Tuesday,
Yeah.
and Mona leaves with us tomorrow morning for junior high.
Big week of camp, so it's our junior high week of summer camp over in Arkansas. They're going to John Brown University for 4 days of fun in the sun, and some really cool activities for our junior high students, so pray for them. Pray for the adults going with them, Diane, and Mark.
And Mona. There's
And
4
Mona.
adults to 4 kids.
4 and 4, so yeah, we go heavy on that, don't we? So anyway, that'll be happening this week. Pray for God to do big things like He did for our high school students at their week of camp. Really big, important things for the students in our church. To that end, Wednesday night, those of you who have kiddos who come on Wednesdays, this week we'll not have Wednesday night activities here on campus. We will be at our house for a midsummer pool party for the kiddos who are in town. 6 to 8 o'clock. If you need our address, it's on our website, collinsvillechristian.org, or just ask us. We can get that to you. We'd love to have the kiddos come. You can come as well. We're going to have hot dogs and maybe some hamburgers on the grill and have a good time. So that'll be happening this week as well. What else? Oh, do we have an update on Grandma Joe, Larry?
She's still waiting for an answer.
So she had biopsy Wednesday, and we're still waiting on results.
Yeah.
Okay, so do continue to pray for Grandma Joe if you would do that. She's very anxious about this still, right? Yeah, for sure. We have something here that we need to do, don't we? Is there a Diane Smithson in the house? Diane Smithson, look, she's giving you the evil eye, honey. Diane Smithson, come right up. You have won your place on the Wheel of Fortune. No, right up here, young lady.
I have a red carpet, sorry.
So you all, we love Diane and Matt. They've come into our church and have plugged in and do so much for us. And we as leadership were talking, and we just want you all to know how much we love you. Matt's great, but we love you better.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. But the guys, leadership in the church, want to say that we appreciate and love everything you do for the Lord here in our church.
Well, thank you. I was not expecting this, nor do I really need this, but I love all of you, and we're so happy to be here and be a part of this church. So.
Thank you. But next week we expect watermelon or something like
Oh.
that.
Give her a break.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, right. All right, so it's good to have you with us. Let's stand up, shake somebody's hand, tell them good morning as we get ready to worship.
I got Martin that
Oh, yeah.
On
Yeah, I'm fine.
Morning, everyone. My son Sam never gets sung happy birthday. His birthday's never during the school year. Today, Sammy is 10 years old. We're gonna sing happy birthday to him. That's him in the blue. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Rob's been talking about. Do you really know Jesus? Is he your one and only? And we're known by our actions. So I want to read a scripture here, and it's titled "To Walk in Love." It's Ephesians 5, verses 1 and 2. It says, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and we are to walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God." Kind of goes along with Romans 12, 1 and 2. Are you a living sacrifice for Jesus every day? Do you know him? Do you come just here on Sundays and Wednesdays, and that's the only time you read your book or your Bible, or do you actually spend time with him and really know that he's the one and only way to God through the cross? And as we sing this next song, Our Living Hope, you're willing to partake of the cup. The bread is in the bottom and the juice is in the top. And just let us remember why we worship Jesus, why we follow Jesus, and why we come to church.
Thank you.
couple things I want to remind you of as we get started today. Or to make you aware of, next week, Andrew will be back. Andrew, one of our students who grew up here in the church, he has been doing an internship in Maine this summer. And so he's wrapping that up this week and will be driving back across the United States with his mom on a road trip, which is awesome. Who doesn't love to go on a road trip with their mom, right? And so he'll be back with us next Sunday, and I look forward to hearing a report from his internship and him plugging back in here with us at the church. I look forward to having him maybe share some of the preaching responsibilities, calling responsibilities, and some of those things as well. Let's see. Also, we're going to try and plan a CIY Sunday after the junior high kids get back here in the next couple of weeks. We always like to have the kids come on Sunday morning, tell you what happened at church camp. If we can round them up and get them out of bed on Sunday morning, we'll work on that. And if you haven't been into the fellowship hall, when we finish church today, go back over on this side because Diane's got fresh garden veggies in there for you to take home. Please don't leave them here. They won't last the week because they're fresh. There's some tomatoes, some cucumbers, some peppers.
Banana peppers and bell peppers.
Yeah, so
Help
please
yourselves.
take those and enjoy them or give them to someone else. And then also, we have offering plates in the front and the back. If you brought your tithe, your offering, you didn't get a chance to drop that in, you can do that as well as we support the Lord's work in building the kingdom here at Collinsville Christian Church. All right, I want to take you back in time today. Some of you will remember this moment. I can sort of remember it. 1988, vice presidential debate between Dan Quayle and a man named Lloyd Bentsen. It was televised. And it was like all these, all the presidential debates. There were the two podiums and the journalists who were asking the questions. And Dan Quayle was asked about his qualifications to be president of the United States if something were to happen to the president, because this was the vice presidential debate. So there was a lot of doubt about his qualifications because he's young, he's a senator, doesn't have a lot of experience, and so he spends a lot of time talking about his qualifications should the worst situation happen, the president of the United States become assassinated or disabled or something, and he moved up into that role because there was a lot of doubt about that. So he talks about this, and I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I'm just going to show you this clip. And in this clip, he says, I have as much experience as Jack Kennedy did when he ran to be president. And what he was trying to do was to really connect himself to a highly respected person from the other party to give himself credibility. So Emma, make sure it sounds up on the main computer, number one, and here we go.
If that unfortunate
Turn it up.
situation happens, if that situation, which would be very tragic, happens, I will be prepared to carry out the responsibilities of the presidency of the United States of America. And I will be prepared to do that. I will be prepared not only because of my service in the Congress, but because of my ability to communicate and to lead. It is not just age, it's accomplishments, it's experience. I have far more experience than many others that sought the office of Vice President of this country. I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did when he sought the presidency. I will be prepared to deal with the people in the Bush administration if that unfortunate event would ever occur.
Senator Benson?
Here it comes.
Senator, I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Oh, anybody remember that moment? Oh, that was brutal. He just crucified him. It was rough. Man, I show you that today because that is the tone of Jesus' conversation in John chapter 8. And when you read it, you completely miss it. Like, you don't catch the barbs that are going back and forth. You don't catch the fiery back and forth that's happening, the heated pieces that the Pharisees and the Jews are throwing at Jesus and how he's able to deflect them. But that is the tone of the conversation that's happening in John chapter 8. And we're going to come in at the very tail end of this back and forth. You'll remember we've been here now several weeks. We're at the Feast of Tabernacles, almost to the cross. We're just getting there. We've been in this long series called The Gospel, where we have followed Jesus through his ministry, starting with his birth and the early days of his ministry when he wasn't really well known, and then in recognition as he was doing miracles and healings and people began to follow him, and now in the revolution phase where he's heading towards the cross. And he's here at the Feast of the Tabernacles, and you'll remember he's done some big things here, right? Remember his brother said, just go on down to the feast and show them who you really are. And he's like, that, I'm going, but that's not why, right? And when he was there, he claimed to be the light of the world. He claimed to be living water. Both were revolutionary type statements that just rattled people. And now he's getting this back and forth, these barbs going back and forth with the Jewish leaders. And we're going to come in at the tail end of this conversation. If you want to follow along in John chapter 8, I'll put it up here for you today. Here we go. Right, again, coming in right in the middle of the conversation. They answered, they being the Jews, the Jewish leaders, we say you are a Samaritan and you have a demon in you. Are we not right? To which Jesus answered, I have no demon in me. I give honor to my Father, but you dishonor me. I'm not trying to get honor for myself, Jesus says. There is one who wants this honor for me, and he is the judge. I tell you the truth, whoever obeys my teachings will never die. And they said to Jesus, now we know you have a demon in you. You're nutso. That's what they're saying. Even Abraham and the prophets died, but you say, whoever obeys my teaching will never die. Do you think you're greater than our father Abraham, who died? And the prophets died too? Who do you think you are? And Jesus answered, if I give honor to myself, that honor is worth nothing. The one who gives me honor is my Father, and you say he is your God. You don't really know him, but I know him, Jesus says. If I said I did not know him, I would be a liar. Are you ready? Like you. You catch that, Barb? But I do know him, and I obey what he says. Your father, Abraham, was very happy that he would see my day. He saw that day, and he was glad. And they said to him, you've never even seen Abraham. You're not even 50 years old, man. Do you hear the incredulity? They're outraging us. Jesus answered, I tell you the truth. Before Abraham was even born, I am. When Jesus said this, they picked up stones to throw at him. But Jesus hid himself, and then he left the temple. Now, like I said, we're coming in right in the middle, kind of tail end of this conversation we've been in for the last couple of weeks. And Jesus has just told them, hey, you belong to your father, and it's not God. Who did he say their father was? Anyone grab that? Satan, the devil, right? And if they really belong to God, Jesus said, they would love Jesus, but they don't. So it proves they don't really belong to God, because if they did, they would know who Jesus was. But the problem is, see, they're convinced they belong to God. Now, let's talk about their attack, okay? Their attack, they're mad. I mean, let's be clear. They're really mad here, okay? And they're accusing Jesus of having a demon in him, which is the same thing as saying, literally, you're crazy. Okay? Now, not crazy like when you say to somebody, you're crazy, which means they did something like really funny. It's not like that, okay? And it's not crazy like when somebody was showing off, like did a daredevil thing, like, you're crazy. It's not like that, okay? This is crazy as in when you see somebody who is not, you see somebody and their mind isn't right. Like, and you can legitimately go, they're not okay. They're not all there. Like, I don't know, Diane and I watched years and years ago some news report of a couple of brothers, and you just felt so bad for them. But when they were teenagers, they got into a really bad habit of stealing spray paint and sniffing it. And so the interviewer had caught up with them. They were in their late 20s. And these guys, they had just ruined their lives from this constant habit of putting this chemical into their brain, which had eaten their brain receptors. Then they were crazy. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but that's the intent of what these people are saying. They're saying to Jesus, you're not all there, dude. Like, you're crazy, okay? Or like, you're schizophrenic. You're dangerous. This is what they were going for, because if Jesus was that, then they could discredit him, see? And if they could discredit him, then he's a nobody. That's why they called him a Samaritan. They said, you're a Samaritan and you have a demon in you. They're going for the death kill here. Because calling him a Samaritan, like, whoopee-doo, means nothing to us, right? But in that context, there are actually two things they were saying. They were mocking his birth and accusing him of committing heresy, which was against the Jewish law, okay? And so they're actually combining these two insults into one. In other words, if you were claiming to be somebody great in Jesus' day and in the Bible, it is everything who you are being connected to your lineage. Okay? You had to have the right lineage. You had the right family line to back you up. If you were going to go claim to be the king, you better be the son of the king. Because that family line backs you up and says, yeah, you could be the king, right? What they were doing was resorting to petty insults. This would be like Larry, if you claimed to be related to Elvis. Now, we know you're an amazing musician. I've heard you play the steel guitar. But if you walked in here and said, Bob, I got something to tell you. I found out I'm related to Elvis. We would say to you, you got some paperwork to show that? Because I'm pretty sure I need to be seeing that, right? Are you related to Elvis? No, okay, just being sure. So that's what's going on here. They're just like, you ain't got the credentials. You are nobody and you're nuts. Jesus' response is really important. Because in Jesus' response, this dispels any myths. Anytime you've ever thought, that Jesus guy, he's soft. He's so easy. He never judges anyone. He's pushover. You ever had that thought about Jesus? He doesn't have no backbone. This conversation between Jesus and these people dispels any myths that he's weak, passive, or timid. Jesus is on this mission that God has called him to. And he will not let anything get him off mission. Jesus has come, let's be clear, to willingly lay down his life for you and for me and for these very people who are insulting him. And it takes everything, every piece of character that you have to lay your life down willingly and not strike back. This passage, I think, brings up three things I want to talk about just very quickly today. The first one is who Jesus thinks he is. Second one is who the people think he is. And then the last one, of course, is who we think he is. So let's just talk for a second. Who does Jesus think he is here? It is clear from what he says here. Jesus believed he is God. Whether you accept that he's God or not, whether anyone in the world accepts that he is God or not, Jesus clearly believed he is God. Look at what he said in John 8. He says, if you believe my teaching, you will never die. I do know God. These are the verse numbers. I do what God tells me to do. Before Abraham was alive, I am. That's the one that really got them. When Jesus said this, the people picked up stones to throw at him. This happens right after he said that. This is the one that infuriated them. And again, we kind of gloss over this, but it's huge, and you've got to understand why. When you remember back in Exodus 3, when Moses asked God, like God said, hey, come over here, burning bush, take your sandals off, you're on holy ground, you're going to go lead my people out of Egypt, that whole conversation. And Moses said to God, hey, so like when I get there, I'm going to say to them, so the God of your ancestors sent me to you. What if the people say, oh yeah, what's his name? Like, would anyone do that? Right, yeah, they would. Well, what should I tell them? And then God said to Moses, verse 14, I am who I am. When you go to the people of Israel, you tell them, I am sent me to you. Now, let's talk about this. You've been around church, you've heard this before, but let's just grab this, okay? This phrase, translated I am who I am in Hebrew, is in English translated as follows. Ehyeh asher ehyeh. Okay, I'm not a Hebrew scholar, so I probably butchered that, but that's pretty close. This word ehyeh is first person common singular of the verb to be. Again, I'm not an English major either, so let me give you some examples of how this word is used. When you use it alone, when you use this word, you can use it to say, I am watching the sheep. I am driving to Sonic. I am watching TV. I am walking on the road. I am his father. I am, you fill in the blank. Okay? So it means those kinds of things. But take all the other context off of it. Put it all by itself. And when it's used alone, here's where it goes. I am, in the Bible, in Hebrew, is the ultimate statement of self-sufficiency, self-existence, immediate presence. Stay with me. God's existence is not contingent upon you or me or anyone else. His plans are not contingent upon any circumstances. God's plans are not contingent on you getting out of bed. He promises that he will be what he will be, and he will be who he will be, and he will never change that. He will be the eternally constant God. He stands ever present and unchangeable, completely sufficient in himself to do what he decides to do and to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. Let's stop for a second. Some of you in here are Marvel movie fans. Okay? Raise your hand if you watch the Marvel movies. Billy, if you didn't raise your hand, I was going to be heartbroken, dude. Marvel movies, right? Last night, Diane and I watched, which one?
The second one of the Great Galaxies or whatever.
Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That was the one we watched last night. And in that movie, there's this dude played by who is it? Kurt Russell. You know Kurt Russell, Larry. Remember him, the actor? Yeah, Kurt Russell's in this movie. He's still alive. Did you know it? He plays a god in this movie. And guess what his planet's called? Anyone want to guess what he named his own planet he made? Ego. I wonder why. Because this guy, this god, is all full of himself. And you know what he did? He went and planted little pieces of himself all across the universe and all these planets, but he can't make them grow to take over all the planets because he wants everything to be all about him. So he gets his son to come to help him do that. And of course, eventually, the Guardians of the Galaxy can't be having him destroying the whole universe and all of life on the universe and everything. So they stop him and he gets a victory and it's all good. That is what people think God is like. That is not this. God exists at all times, forever, uncreated. He doesn't have to create worlds to propagate himself. God exists for the good of all at all times. God eternally existed before the earth was created. God will eternally exist after everything here is accomplished. And God existed eternally to have a relationship with us. God exists eternally unselfishly, not to feed his ego, but to have a relationship with you. Man, that ought to make you think a whole lot about if there really is a God. I really got to decide what I'm going to do if I'm going to take him serious or not. Because I'm not going to be around forever. And if he says there's a way that I get to hang out with him when it's all said and done here, I probably ought to think about that. And that brings us to Jesus, who said he was that God. That's who he thought he was. When Jesus said, I am who I am, and God identified himself as that, no matter when or where, God is there. And when Jesus used this word, he is deliberately invoking the very same claim, and they knew it. And that's huge, and that's why they picked up rocks to stone him. Let me show you another example of how big this was, okay? Because I just don't think you get it. I mean, when you read it on the words of the page, they're just kind of flat sometimes. You miss the emotion. There's another Marvel movie. Okay, if you haven't guessed, Diane and I are watching the Marvel movies in order, okay? So that's why I'm using all these illustrations. In one of the early Marvel movies, there's a guy named Tony Stark, okay? And he creates this suit that gives him like flying abilities, and he can't be killed and things like that, right? And so he gets this suit, and he's flying around, defending people, defeating bad guys. It's something new. No one's ever seen anything like this. Who is this? They don't know. And so there's this news conference. Let me take you to this moment to show you how big it was when Jesus said, I am. Watch the crowd's reaction.
Up now, Mr. Stark has prepared a statement. He will not be taking any questions. Thank you.
Been a while since I was in front of you. I figure I'll stick to the cards this time. There's been speculation that I was involved in the events that occurred at the freeway and the rooftop.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stark, but do you honestly expect us to believe that that was a bodyguard in a suit that conveniently appeared, despite the fact that...
I know that it's confusing. It is one thing to question the official story, and another thing entirely to make wild accusations or insinuate that I'm a superhero.
I never said you were a superhero.
Didn't? Well, good, because that would be outlandish and fantastic. I'm just not the hero type, clearly, with this laundry list of character defects, all the mistakes I made, largely public. Yeah. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
That's the reaction that the crowd had the moment Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. That's how startling it was to them. He claimed to be God Almighty, and there was no question about it. They understood that. So let's talk about who they thought Jesus was. I've talked about it a little bit, you know already. They thought he was a nobody, delusional. But they could not deny that he was a somebody. He could do things. Everyone was talking about how he healed them. Everyone was talking about how he fed over 15,000 people with just some fish and some bread. Everyone was talking about the fact that he could cast out demons. And he brought a little girl back to life who was dead. And this guy named Lazarus. Everybody was talking about it. He could do stuff, and they knew it. And many people loved Jesus, and they were following him increasingly. But the Jewish leadership refused to accept his message. And they refused to accept it because they did not understand his message, because they had no intention to listen. What's your intention with Jesus? Will you listen to him? When Jesus said, Abraham looked forward to the coming of the Messiah and rejoiced to see the day of Jesus finally arrive, what did they say? You're not even 50 years old. How could you have seen him? He died a long time ago. See, you know what they did there? You caught that, right? They took him literally, right? You grabbed that? Because they never considered the possibility that what Jesus was saying was actually true. It couldn't be. It was impossible to them. And you know why it was impossible to them? Because they had no intention to listen to him. And that leads us to who do we think Jesus is? Seems like a big churchy question, right? I mean, here we are, we're in church, we're all here, we follow Jesus, we believe in Jesus, right? Jesus is God, I follow Jesus, I get to go to heaven. But maybe it's not that simple. Thursday of this past week, we had a big managers meeting for my real estate company. You guys know I teach real estate classes and sell houses and stuff. And in this meeting, our CEO of the company posed this question, and it jumped out at me, and I wrote it down. He said, how do we describe something that you cannot see? And what he was talking about is the culture of our company that he wants to create. The culture that he's trying to create at our real estate company is we are loyal, we are tenacious, and we are committed. How in the world do you describe those three things? You can't see them. So how do you describe them, right? So he comes up with some definitions, and we talked about those things, right? Loyal in our culture is when you do this, and tenacious as a McGraw agent is when you do this, and how you represent people, and committed is such and such. And so it got me to thinking in regards to who do we think Jesus is? How do you describe something you cannot see? Like faith. Like what is faith in Jesus? Bible says, you've heard the Bible definition, faith is believing in something you cannot see. So for example, you have faith right now in the chair you're sitting in because you believe it's going to hold you up. When you go home today, you're going to get into your automobile and you will push the brake pedal and you have complete faith that the brake system will work, right? That is faith. You can't see it, but you believe in it, right? That's one definition. But I think that's only one answer. And I think you got to get way more practical than that when we're talking about faith in Jesus. Faith is, I think, believing in Jesus and living out the two things that he told us to do. Because loving God and loving others, that's how you can see faith. So you can talk about faith. Well, I believe in God, and you can't see God, but I can read about God in the Bible. But loving God and loving others is faith that you can see. And on a practical level, in American culture today, it's things like instead of being annoyed with people, because people are annoying, instead of quote-unquote hating everyone, you're able to understand the frustrations that people face. Give people a break. Have patience with others and be supportive instead of hateful and judgmental. People can see that. When you live like that, people can see that. Instead of being a potty mouth, you control your speech in order to be a good influence on those around you, on children and others. You speak life into people instead of curses about your frustrations. When you live out loving God and loving others, you become what Jesus called light and salt. You just are a different person. Because following Jesus takes faith into action. Following Jesus, even though you don't get it right a lot of days, and I don't get it right most days, you're still in the battle saying, I'm not going to talk that way. And when I do, I'm going to make it right. I'm not going to be the hateful person in line at McDonald's. I'm going to be nice to that person who's having a really bad day and was rude to me. You become someone who Jesus works through because you do not refuse to accept Jesus like the people did here. What did John say about these people? They had no intention of listening to Jesus. If you believe Jesus is who he says he is, that he is God, and if you believe there is a God who works for our good, and if you believe that there is a God who sent Jesus to die on a cross so you can have a relationship with him, then you become a changed person because you let God do the work inside you of cleaning you up and taking you from the way you used to live to where you had no intention to listen to God and you had no intention to do anything except get through life or maybe get through this awful, terrible day or get through this amazing day because I'm on vacation, but then I have to go back to my rotten life, to a life of purpose. A life that speaks life into other people. A life that is truly changed. Because that's what Jesus does. That's what God is all about. See, faith in Jesus is loving God to the point that I'm going to follow what he says in his word, and I'm going to do it a little better every day, and I'm going to stay right with God through Jesus because I know that anytime I mess up, God's got me like this because of the cross. And if God's got me like this because of the cross, even when I don't deserve it, then how can I be like this to anyone else? But this is how I want to be to others, right? I mean, come on, if we're honest, people grate on your nerves, right? And yet, I go to God every day and I go, God, how can you and I be like this and me not be like this to others? Make me like this to others. We're going to do response differently today. So, I came across a video yesterday, actually, of a guy who does restoration work on things that were lost. And I was just looking through YouTube and, thinking about our talk today and kind of where I wanted to go with you. And I believe that God brings things to me to share with you. I don't know if you believe God does that, gives you things to share with others. I think that's how God works sometimes, right? And so I came across this video, I started watching it, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, that is the essence of this conversation Jesus is having. These people have gotten lost. And they have no intention to listen to Jesus, but if they would just listen to him, he could make a total change in them. Like he will in so many in the book of Acts. I'm reading through the book of Acts right now. If you're reading through our devotional we do as a church every year, Loving God, we're in Acts, and we've just come across where Stephen gave his life for Jesus and did not curse the people who were putting him to death. And there was a young man standing there named Saul, and Jesus appeared to him on a road, and Saul immediately became faithful to Jesus, changed his life, and began preaching the word, meeting with the apostles who were leery at first. And the church has begun to grow. This is what Jesus wants to do in you and me. So as we go into response today, here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to have the band come up here. I'm going to pull the lights down in the room. And I want us to just go into a very quiet moment as you watch this video. And let the words that come across this screen as this guy restores this old World War II lighter that got lost and discarded. Let the words that come across the screen come into your heart and ask yourself the question, am I willing to listen to Jesus? Am I willing to let him penetrate into my heart and my soul to make me from this kind of a person into this kind of a person, where I am open to others, even if they wound me. So let's pull these lights down, guys. Lights on the stage, lights in here. It's the center, Emma. And then the pulpit and up here. Pull down the screen. Jesus will leave this festival and head to a cross where he will willingly lay down his life and then take it up again in 3 days as proof that it wasn't just who he thought he was who he said he was. And that's proof that we can live on. After Jesus is raised from the dead, he will appear to a lot of people, and then he will ascend into heaven. The church will be born, and in the early days of the church, I was reading in Acts 12, we read this incident about a ruler named Herod. Herod went from Judea to Caesarea and stayed there. He had been quarreling with the people of Tyre and Sidon, and now joined together. They joined together and sought an audience with him. After securing the support of Blastus, a trusted personal servant of the king, they asked for peace because they depended on the king's country for their food supply. So there's a big thing happening socially with this guy, this ruler guy, Herod, and they want peace, and they're going to talk to him about this, right? So on the appointed day when the meeting is set up, here's what the book of Acts says happened. Herod, wearing his royal robes, sat on his throne and delivered a public address to the people. So it's State of the Union, right? And they shouted, the people shouted, "This is the voice of a God, not a man." And immediately, because Herod did not give praise to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down, and he was eaten by worms and died. And then verse 24. But the word of God continued to spread and to flourish. Verse 24 is the key. How do you measure something that you can't see, like faith? You know how you measure it? When you can see it. God cleans us up so we can make a difference in other people's lives. He changes us and uses us to draw people to Jesus, just like here in Acts 12. Big turmoil happening in the city. Big thing going on. Wanting peace, wanting safety, wanting security. The head, the president, the dude, he's talking. And what are the Christians doing? They're making a difference in people's lives. That's kingdom work. But the word of God continued to spread and flourish. Why does God do his work inside of us? So that we can invite others to be restored, to know the peace of Christ and the hope that only Jesus can offer. This is the gospel. I hope that you will consider this week in your life as you go about your day, that you will look for opportunities to impact people, that you will look for opportunities for God to be working in your life and in your heart to bring up situations that you struggle with, because that's how God does his restoration work. He keeps bringing them up and saying, are we going to deal with this in a godly way today? That's opportunity. So now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. You are dismissed.
Even though cannot see where you're leading me, I am yours, you are faithful.
Thank you.
Another day and one alive. Nothing lost and nothing gained. And I can't make it on my own. And that I know will never change. I hope it's in you. My trust is in you. You have never failed. You are faithful to provide. You are always by my side. Even though I cannot see where you're leading me, I am yours and you are faithful. So I will try my way. With all the dreams out of home,
Hey, Bob? Hey, it's good to have you with us today. I hope you'll let God do His work in your life and in your heart. Have a good week.